In this video, we're going to continue with distributions. We've already done shape and center, so in this video, we're going to look at the spread of a distribution. So, in some sense, the spread of the distribution that we talk about is we're going to come up with various measures. So, first of all, let's just give some examples. Here's a distribution which is pretty symmetric. Here's another distribution which is also pretty symmetric, but a much wider range. And here's one that's not very symmetric, but not a very big spread either. Right? So what we're talking about spread is how likely is X to be very far from the mean. So we can even write that down because that's what we mean by spread. What does spread mean? How likely is a value of X far from the mean? And the answer isn't yes or no, or likely or unlikely, it's what is the spread. So let's think about the spread of a distribution. So first of all, we have a couple of common measures, and the most common measure is the range. And the range is simply defined as the largest value minus the smallest value. And that's pretty good in most cases. Like, for example, I have a dance group that I dance with for fun, and the youngest one is probably 22 years old, and the oldest is 74 years old. So if we subtract that, 74 minus 22, then we have a range in our dance group of 52 years. And it gives a sense of, well, how different are people's ages? Now, we haven't talked about what the mean is here because this is a measure of spread that doesn't have to do with mean at all. Just what is the range? If you looked at teachers at the school that I work in, the lowest salary is probably $36,000 a year. And the highest salary probably is about $74,000 a year. I don't really know these numbers. I'm just kind of making them up. They're roughly right. So what is the range of salaries, teacher salaries at my school? It would be 76 minus 34. I think that's 42. So that would be a range of $42,000 per year. Actually, I think you get a sense here. In my dance group that I'm involved with, there's a large range of ages, and among teachers there's a fairly large, but not terribly large, range in salaries. Range works pretty good, except for very large data sets, and then there's something called the IQR, and IQR stands for interquartile range. And the interquartile range is simply what we call it Q3 minus Q1, where Q3 is the 75th percentile and Q1 is the 25th percentile. And if you haven't done percentiles yet, then there's a video on position that talks about what percentiles are. And 75th percentile, 20th percentile are pretty easy to do with most graphing calculators or computer programs. You simply subtract the two and it tells you the interquartile range. And that gives you the same thing as range, but it clips the edges or the wings or the tails in a sense. Now the most common measure of a spread of a distribution is called the standard deviation. And you should be able to do a standard deviation on your calculator or by hand. You only do it by hand a few times to make sure that you know how to do it, and then everyone else uses a computer. So use a hand or a calculator. Graphing calculators can do them easy. Most other calculators can too. And here's the formula. We use sigma. That's a Greek letter, sigma. And it's going to be the sum of xi minus x bar squared over n minus 1, where you take the square root. And that's going to be standard deviation. We'll go over another video that talks about how to do it. And that's the measures of spread of a distribution.